So you've been very carefully and diligently building up your long-term food pantry, buying a little bit every week or every month and adding it to your pantry. You've got a nice little long-term emergency stash. And then it finally happens, an emergency. Some kind of a winter storm or maybe a hurricane knocks out power for a week. So you got all this food. Here's the next question. How do you cook it? So I want to show you how to make an emergency rocket stove like this with 26 bricks that will allow you to cook an entire meal with one tiny little stack of sticks, of twigs that you can pick up from your yard. Well, hey everybody, I'm Bill with Live Simple, Live Free. And you know, being the preppers that we are, we have a fairly good long-term food storage pantry, emergency food. And so the problem becomes, in an emergency, like I said before, how do you cook it? Now in our home, our winter home in Virginia, we have a propane stove and oven, and we have two of those big cylinders, 100-pound propane tanks sitting outside. When they're full, that lasts me for about a year and a half. So I don't really need to worry about it up there. If the power goes out, we can still cook. The power does go out up there, especially in the winter. Winter storms can bring power lines down. We would be out of power sometimes for a week. Down here in Florida, we have an electric stove. So if the power goes out, we can't cook anything. And power goes out down here because of hurricanes on a regular basis. So this is why I have plans to cook with a rocket stove. So I'm going to show you how to build a rocket stove with just 25 bricks. And I use this as a base. You don't have to use this. You can just set it right on the ground if you want, but I just prefer it there. I think it makes it a little bit more stable. The cool thing about a rocket stove is that you can cook an entire meal with just a handful of twigs. And you can always find twigs. So, you know, I did a video about building a rocket stove once before, about 7 or 8 years ago. And I decided to do it again because I know many of you have not seen it. But in that video, I got all kinds of questions about, well, why don't you just use a barbecue grill? Or can you use barbecue briquettes in here? Or can you use coal in here? Can you use pellets in here? Yes, to all of those. But here's the point. In an emergency, you might not have those available. Or you might not have enough. You might have enough for charcoal in your grill for 2 or 3 days, and your power's out for a week. Then what do? You're probably never going to run out of twigs. That's the emergency of this, or that's the beauty of this emergency cook stove. So this is very fast and easy to do. Let me show you how I do this. Now, I need to have a half brick right here. So I generally cut it off, cut a brick in half. I have a mason's chisel, or it's called a cold chisel. Costs about 15 bucks. If you don't have one of these, you don't want to spend that, you can also use a large flat blade screwdriver. Or you can do it without cutting it, and I'll show you that in a minute. But all you do to cut it is just score it in half. Like that, very fast and easy. So then I'm going to put this right here and this here. And then the second row, okay, now I watched a lot of videos on YouTube about this, how to do this, and most of them, they would do this and then they would put a sheet of metal mesh here before they would put the next row on, and they would leave a gap for 2 rows. They would put the sticks in on top of that metal mesh, and then it would be underneath where the ashes would fall and the air would get in. I designed this myself. I think I came up with a better solution to that. So I don't use the mesh there. Instead, I do this, and now there's nothing there to support that, but that won't matter. I'll put it over here. That won't matter because the next one on top will hold it in place. Oh, sorry. I'm not doing very well here. This goes over there like that. So I leave a hole here and I leave a hole here. Now, what I was saying was if you don't want to cut the brick, then you can just put in a full one like that. Just let it stick out. I just think it's much cleaner if you cut the bricks like that. So now I got, like I said, a hole here and a hole here. Now I'm just going to fill in the next row all the way around. Now here's the way this is going to work. When I have the fire, this is the fire pit, fire chamber down in here. I'm going to take these little sticks and I'm going to feed them in here. And that holds that up off of the bottom, and it allows air to be drawn in here. And you just keep feeding your sticks in like this. If you want to get a metal mesh and put it in there second row like the others do, you can certainly do that. That works fine. It's just that doing it this way, you don't have to go out and find that metal mesh. And I really like it like that. One, two, three, four, five, six. If you make it too short, this is the chimney. If you make it too short, the chimney won't draw properly. You want to have it at least 6 rows. You can go a couple higher if you want. And then what happens is the heat from the fire comes up the chimney, makes a big updraft here, and it draws air in down underneath, which is like putting a fan on that flame, and it gets real hot. It's a small little fire like this, but it burns really hot. It gets hot enough sometimes that it actually roars, and that's why they call it a rocket stove. But so there it is, right there. And then if you can find a grill, like from a stove top to go on here, that would be great. I haven't been able to find one around here. I'm going to have to probably order one online or something like that. But here's a shot of my old video showing the type of grill that I'm talking about. And then we have that propane stove in the house, and to top this off, I just use the grill from the propane stove, and that'll hold your pot up off of the cinder block, because you got to have room for the gases and smoke to get out. And that works very well. You can pick these up, you know, as an accessory to a stove very easily. But if you don't have a grill like that, then you can just take 2 more blocks or bricks, set them like that, set your pot on top, and then that gives area on both sides for the heat to get out. Now as far as the bricks, these are just regular red bricks. You can use fire bricks, that's probably the best, but this works fine. In my last stove, I used bricks that were made out of the cinder block material. And there were a number of people that were very concerned that those were going to explode when they get hot. But in my experience, this doesn't stay hot enough for long enough to make that be a problem. I used it many times and never had a problem. If they're completely soaked in water, like they've been out in the rain and they got a lot of moisture in there, then that might be a problem. But so if you want to find fire bricks, that would be the best, but either one of these work as well.
Okay, so we are going to assume that we have no electricity. Now I know I have lights on, but you can't film without them. But I have no electricity, and now I really want to be able to fix a meal on the rocket stove. So I've got a cast iron pan, which of course works perfectly. And I'm going to take some of my Thrive Life food. I've got freeze-dried food here, which is wonderful under these circumstances because it hasn't had to be refrigerated. I know I can grab whatever I need, and I know I can make just as much as I need, because without refrigeration, it's also hard to store food safely. So I'm just going to make one meal here for us. I love these little Pioneer Woman measuring cups. Okay. Now I'm just going to put it right into the cast iron. It's also kind of hard to wash dishes when you don't have electricity. So I'm going to put in some meat. This is the hamburger, all ready to go. It's actually already cooked, and I could eat it right out of the can. Okay, I'm going to add some potatoes. These are freeze-dried. Now, this is a supper-sized meal, so I'm just going to kind of figure on what we could do to make a good meal for supper. Okay, now I'm going to be adding some green beans and some corn and some peas. And I'll be right back when I have those done. Okay, so I now have some green beans, peas, some corn in with my hamburger and my potatoes. I'm going to go ahead and put water in here. I probably would at least have the city water for a while, so I will go ahead and get water out of here. And we tend to have very good quality water. It actually got really carefully checked when we did the hot tub. Okay, I'm bringing it back over here. I think I almost made too much. I hope Bill's hungry. I would probably actually have used a cast iron kettle, which I have in Virginia. Don't have it down here. So I think that the cast iron frying pan will work, and maybe at some point I'll get a kettle down here also. Okay, I'm going to add one more thing here. This is the wonderful Thrive Life like tomato sauce. It makes like a marinara, it makes spaghetti or whatever you want to do. And I think it makes a lovely broth, especially with beef. So I'm going to use my smaller little cup here and just put some in. And I don't want to thicken it, I just want enough to give a nice flavor. So I put in just a few tablespoons. Okay, so we'll be putting this on the fire and making a really nice dinner with the rocket stove.
Okay, so now I'm ready to start the fire. I got my wood here. This is the air vent hole. This is the hole where the wood goes in. I just put in an extra brick right here just to kind of support the wood when I put it in. Now, you can start this fire however you want to. I have stuffed paper towels or newspapers in there and then put kindling in on top of it. You can use some sort of a small fire starter brick, something like that, whatever you want. This time I am going to use charcoal lighter fluid. Now, in the last video that I did from this a few years ago, I had people come back and say that they couldn't keep the fire going. That's because they were using sticks that were too big, like this. Stuffed it up in there and it doesn't keep going. If you use them, you don't want them the size of your thumb. The largest you want is the size of your pinky. Something like this. But for many of them, you want them the size of a pencil. So if you put in a few larger ones and a whole bunch of these smaller ones like the size of a pencil, then it'll keep burning quite well. So I'm going to start it with the smaller ones, and after it's gone, I'll put in a couple of the bigger ones. Okay. Soak all the wood down there with lighter fluid. It's a pretty windy day, and this is fairly well protected from the wind. This little fire would be blown out very quickly by the wind if it wasn't protected inside of there. Now it's starting to burn quite nicely. You can see some of the flame coming out of the top. all with just a couple of little sticks. Isn't that cool? Now you can't just put a few sticks in there and walk away and let it burn. You have to keep feeding it because the volume of wood that's burning in there is very small and it burns up quickly. So it's definitely work to keep it working. But in an emergency, when you can't cook, this is the way to go.
That is one of the, I don't know, the coolest stove ideas. Look how nice that's burning.
We got quite a bit of really nice heat here. You wouldn't want to put your hand down there for very long.
With little teeny sticks. And this is hurricane country. And man, if you've ever got anything after you've had a natural disaster like a hurricane, it's lots of little pieces of sticks. So we'll just set this right here on the fire. I'm realizing I think I cooked a little more than I thought I did. I still would have to get a handle on how to get the exact right amount, but it'll make a nice dinner.
One of the amazing things about the freeze-dried food is that you can make just the amount that you need so you don't have waste. The challenge is making a meal that's small enough.
Yes.
Because when you can just dump and dump, you end up with a big pile.
Right. Learning to just use really small amounts. This will just make a nice bowl of stew, of the soup, you know, for dinner for us. I realized that I had wanted to add a little bit of the freeze-dried onion from Thrive Life, so I did put a little bit of the onion in and I added some salt and pepper. And of course the broth is actually flavored with the tomato sauce, you know, with the tomato flavor. So, you know, something else that I really appreciate about this, I have been letting this food, you know, get a good soak in the water while the fire was getting built up. And now as soon as this starts to boil, I mean, I think it's going to be very close to ready. I like the fact that I can use so much less cooking time because the food's freeze-dried, and that means using less wood and having to have a fire going less time if that would be helpful. You know, it cooks quickly. So these cans can last 25 years unopened on the shelf. And then once it's open, I mean, I could make so many batches of stuff like this because they last a year even after they're opened with no refrigeration. So
that's a hot fire.
Yeah, it is. You can really feel the heat coming off of this. These little rocket stoves would be such a good source of heat no matter what. Yep. Even if I wanted to come out and warm my hands over a fire.
Well, yeah, a source of heat, but like a fire, you can't use it inside because you got to have a chimney.
Yeah, yeah. But boy, it works great for, you know, cooking something out here. Or heating water.
Yeah.
You know, if we wanted to make some coffee or just needed to heat water
or
to wash things.
Boil water from a stream.
Yes, boil water for safety. Yeah. Absolutely. And then all I'd have to do is I've got the little thing you put a filter in and you just trickle it down through that into a mug and you could have some coffee.
There's flame coming up all around the sides. So having the knowledge and the skill to do this is really, really cool, really essential, because I think it was 26 bricks. You buy 26 bricks and stack them somewhere where they're out of your way, and if you ever need them, you can take them out and build it like this, and instant stove.
Yes.
You can also take it along camping. Obviously, you're not going to take it backpacking because it's heavy, but you can put it in your trunk, you can put it in your RV, in your SUV, and then when you get somewhere, you know, out in the woods and there's no fire pit, you can make this, and it'd be a safe way to make a meal while you're camping. Look at the flame coming out of there.
Man. Also, it can just use little scraps of sticks. Yep. You don't have to have big pieces of wood. It's so efficient. And you know, people can get rocket stoves that are pre-made out of metal.
Yeah.
But I love the fact this is still the basic rocket stove science that makes this thing so hot. And I love Bill's design. It's very efficient. But it's nice that you can just set the stack of bricks somewhere and build it if you need it, or leave it set up if you need it.
And this cost me about $15 for the bricks. I think they were like 80 cents a piece, something like that.
Yeah. And lots of free scraps of wood, that's for sure.
By the way, this base, I don't know if you could tell what it was. These are 2 4-inch solid cinder blocks laying on their side. And like I said earlier, you can just put it on the ground if you want, but I like it on the base. I think it's better. Also, I mentioned this in the last video, that you could also set this up on a balcony of a condo or something like that, especially if it's a concrete balcony. But even if it's a wood balcony, you got this, and then you can get a big piece of sheet metal under there to make it, you know, safe. And when I mentioned it in the last video, a lot of people said, oh, as soon as you do that, you're going to have the fire warden showing up. I'm talking about only emergencies, like end of the world scenario where there probably won't be a fire department.
Yeah, this is where it's just desperate circumstances.
Right.
Absolutely.
Also, you can see that it's hardly smoking at all, and it doesn't smell like a big fire, you know.
It's got a nice little bit of a barbecue smell.
You can cook stealth in your backyard and nobody will see any kind of smoke.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, you can see here there's a very hot fire. It's really efficient, and it's not producing much of any smoke.
It's blowing out a few white ashes now and then, but hardly any smoke at all.
Yep. And the heat is really intense right above it, but it's very not. It's cool on the sides of it, which is nice sitting here. I'm not getting blasted out by heat. The bricks on the sides are actually cool.
Okay, it's all starting to simmer just a little bit now.
Yep, it's not going to take long at all now.
Yep. Once it starts, it's fast and it's hot enough. Once it starts, it's going to boil quickly.
Yeah. The main thing we have to watch out for in any of these where we use the meat is just to make sure the meat has had a chance to get completely resaturated. It doesn't need to cook, but that the meat will get softened up, and that's usually the one that takes the most time. And I started this ahead of time while he was getting the fire going, so this is not going to take long at all.
You can see the water starting to steam.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, it's been simmering along nicely. It's not to a full boil. If we let that happen, then it'll be too hot for us to eat.
And everything is soft and good.
Yeah, everything is soft, everything is cooked, so we're going to go ahead and take it off the fire. You can see the fire still burning down there.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
It'll just burn itself out.
Now I realized a couple of things here. We decided to do this way because when you have an emergency situation and your water's maybe limited or electricity, getting dishes dirty is not something you want to do unnecessarily. There's no reason why we can't sit out here and enjoy just eating this together out of a communal pan.
Right.
And I could have taken this spoon that I was going to eat with and stirred the whole thing with it and not even gotten this one dirty. That's just like I could dump the ingredients out right into the pan and not even use the little serving cups, the little measuring cups. But I wiped them out. I didn't have to use water. I just wiped them out really well and they're clean. So,
of course, in emergency, you can use paper bowls or whatever if you want. Or,
right.
You know, we're just trying to eliminate as much dishwashing as possible.
Right. And the thing of it is really, I can make this entire thing, isn't that good? I can make this entire thing with 2 spoons and the cast iron pan.
Yep.
And it'd be fine.
That's really good.
It's a nice flavor, and I think that tomato gives it just a nice flavor to the broth. That is really delicious. And like I said, I probably could have made less, but this will make a really nice meal. So, Isn't that good?
So I hope you can see the functionality of this stove. Go buy yourself 26 bricks. Practice it a couple times so you know what you're doing. Then you know you're always prepared. Like I said, in Virginia where our summer home is, and in Pennsylvania where we used to live, in the winter, we lost power all the time because of snowstorms, ice storms.
Ice storms, yeah.
Down here in Florida, we lose power all the time because of hurricanes. So we got all this food in our pantry and no way to cook it. Well, here you go.
Yeah, yeah, it works so well.
So I hope you found this helpful.
Yes.
Thanks for watching.
Yes, live simple.
Live free. You be blessed.
And it's never a bad idea. There's no downside.
There's no downside to being
prepared.
So be prepared.
Yes.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Love you guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.